I did get a call from my sister the other day. She was like, "Your accent is so good." And then I followed up with, "And so not me." And she was like, "No." And I love that Interior Night and Microsoft Xbox, all those guys were so committed to casting respectfully and correctly.
Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm here today to talk about As Dusk Falls with one very special guest, and that is Acushla-Tara Kupe. Kupe. Yeah, I've probably murdered and butchered that name, but we're going to be going through and talking about the game and about her experience with working on the game. But Acushla, would you like to do a brief intro to yourself?
Absolutely. Kia ora koutou katoa. Hello, everyone. My name is Acushla-Tara Kupe. You were so close. Very close, though, like a lot better than most people. So thank you so much. And thanks for not shying away. Some people just skip the first part of my first name entirely and try and call me Tara. I'm like, no, 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 no. I am originally from New Zealand, which is where I am now. But I did spend a number of years in the UK, which is where I worked on As Dusk Falls. And I'm so excited it's finally out.
No, I mean, it's amazing. I think you mentioned to me that you had been working on a really large project years ago when you mentioned to me, but you weren't allowed to tell me what it was. And you were saying, it's really difficult for you to keep a secret because you really want to tell people, but you didn't tell me. And, it's amazing that you've been able to work on such a hugely received game, and we will get into everything. But let's talk about video games for yourself. Is this your first video game performance?
If we talk about the chronologically, it's the first video game I was involved with, but I did voice a character in a PlayStation game called Destruction All Stars. Her name's Hannah. She's Māori, so that's my ethnicity, and it was so exciting to voice a Māori character. And I got a little big-headed, and I was like, "It's the first ever Māori character." No, it's definitely not. I think Kupe, like my namesake Kupe, is in Civ, and like I didn't even think about that, but of course he is.
Yeah.
But that game came out before As Dusk Falls, so
right. Okay, so
yeah,
they're intertwined. Wow, I didn't know that. So wow, there you go. That's huge.
I never took your drums. I had the stage manager move them to a practice room, you egg.
That was a good idea.
Right, we're back. Quick wardrobe change. The white was shining far too much. A spotlight on me when the spotlight should be on Acushla. So let's dive straight back into it. So you've obviously been in the video gaming world. What would you say your favorite video game is?
Oh, my family. I'm gonna say 3. 4. 4? Can I go with 4?
You can go with 4. You can go with.
I'll go with 4. Growing up, maybe 5. Okay. A brief history of my love of games from a young age. We had a Sega when we were young, and so Alex Kidd, obviously, that built-in game, solid favorite growing up. And then we graduated to a PlayStation. I don't even know what PlayStation it was. It was that sort of matte grey one.
Probably the PS1, the original.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah.
And
because the PS2 was black, so.
Oh, then it would have been a PS1. And we had like I think we had a cool see-through controller at one point that was purple that came out with Spyro. Huge fan of Spyro. Crash Bandicoot, Final Fantasy VII specifically, but our brothers would play to a particular point where you got to play the arcade games, and then me and my sisters would just go into those saved games to play the arcade games. We didn't really, and sometimes like we'd try catch Chocobo, but we didn't really play the game. We just played the arcade games inside. And we also used to have tournaments of one of those, it was called Bust a Move, and it was one of those games. You know Bust a Move?
Yeah. I know all of the games so far.
Oh, perfect. We would have a day-long tournament as a family playing Bust a Move. So that was most of my childhood.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't have guessed. Alex Kidd was actually one of my first games as well. So,
So good. I still
yeah.
remember the beginning level. You'd start and you'd have to jump over, and there was a ghost not too far down, and as you made your way down, you'd eventually get into the water. Then there's the octopus. Like, I remember the beginning very well. Oh, and there was another game called Speedy Egbert, which was like a PC game. You just play it on the internet.
Nah, you lost me on that one.
Yeah, it was, I don't even know how we came across it, but again, a weird, intense love affair with that game. And then never played it again.
Then how did that progress, I guess, into acting? Did you ever, envision yourself in a video game, or did you want to be a stage actor, theater actor, TV actor? What was the dream?
What was the dream? That's a good question. I wanted to be a performer. I think when I was quite young, I wanted to be a singer. And I can hold a tune. Like, my voice is fine, but I'm not going to be selling any CDs anytime soon. And I did a show. Mum put my sisters and I into drama classes. We were very shy kids. And so she put us into drama classes to try and get us to have a bit more confidence and build our self-esteem, which it absolutely did. And I'm so grateful that she did that for us. And then I did a classic show, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, in the children's choir. And I realized it was one show. So we rehearsed for like maybe 6 months for, who was it? It was every second year in New Plymouth, which is where I grew up in Taranaki in New Zealand. They do a show to raise funds for the hospice. And the year that I did Joseph, that was the show. And so we rehearsed for 6 months to do one show. It was one night only at the Bowl of Brooklands, which is a stage, to be said, is Elton John's, one of Elton John's favorite places to perform, he said. It's a beautiful stage. There's like a lake in front and this natural sort of hill where everyone kind of sits. And I realized on stage that night, it wasn't about the singing. It was just about performing. And so then I started doing additional drama classes outside of school. I was doing drama in school, at high school, and it all just kind of kept going. And I realized I just loved the stage. And so stage acting was kind of the first true love of mine.
And in terms of all of this, then how did that lead to As Dusk Falls? Like, where did you get the sort of call? Did you apply for it, that type of thing?
Yeah, it was really cool. I'd never thought about, I knew mocap was a thing, especially being an actor in New Zealand. There's a lot with Weta Workshops and all those guys. We know that it exists and it's a big industry, but I'd never considered gaming in that capacity. I knew there were voice actors, but I never thought about anything past that. So I got a call from my agent when I was in London to say I had an audition for a game. I can't even remember what there was a little fake name that they had at the time. I can't remember what the secret name was. And I turned up and we were auditioned just like you would if you were auditioning for a TV show or a film or a stage play. We were given our sides, we had our script, we had someone reading opposite us, there was a director in the room, and it was with a casting director who does a lot of that. They don't specialize. Andrea Clark, she's amazing. She doesn't specialize in gaming. She does everything. And so it felt like a really normal audition. It didn't feel like game specific or unique or weird or anything. It just felt very normal. Went in, did my lines, left, and then eventually got the call to say, yes, please.
How did you think you went? How did you think it went when you initially gave the lines and stuff like that?
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed the experience. There's somewhere in the depths of Facebook, there is a very grumpy picture of me dressing to scene. I don't like go full costume, but I sort of like give a flavor of who the character is. Like if I'm going in to audition for a detective, I'm not going to come in overalls, And so I had worn what actually is very close to what Joyce wears in the game. I had my jean shorts, lots of necklaces, like a loose flowy shirt on top. I had my boots on, and there's a grumpy picture because I remember it was so cold that day, and I had to tube from Bow in East London into central London, audition and get home in these little short shorts. And then I reposted it a few months later with the caption, "Doesn't matter, book the job." And I was so stoked.
That's brilliant. Let's talk about the motion capture, because you mentioned motion capture and stuff like that. So what did you have to wear? Like, how long did it take? Did you get to see the progress of the character, as you were acting out? Did you see anything else on the screen, or were you just completely oblivious?
Yeah. What was really cool about this job is that it wasn't motion capture. And they filmed us as you would. We were full hair and makeup, costume, looked like our characters on a green screen stage. And they filmed us acting out the scenes. And then from that footage, they captured the shots they wanted, and they were then hand painted in that 2D style and then put into the 3D environments. So for an actor, it was, I wouldn't say it was an easy job, but it wasn't we didn't have to learn any new skills or anything to do the job because we were just performing as we normally would. It was just a green screen. And so we had the scripts. I wish I had one here because they were huge. It was so big. And it got to a point where if I'm being honest, I got to a point where I stopped learning my lines because there were so many. And I would just get someone on the day just to feed me the lines while, like, for each shot that we were doing, because we just do little snippets at a time. But my goodness, it was wonderful and relatively easy work because it was just us. We didn't have dots or any suits or anything on. It was just us in costume, hair, makeup, acting. It was great.
When there were multiple people in a scene, for example, how would they film this?
They would put all of those actors in that scene. We had sometimes, like, you'll see when you go into my motel, and this, like, not really a spoiler, it's in the trailer, guys. Into my motel, there's like a little bench, which is like the greeting reception area. We had a big green box, and that was the reception area. And we just moved that around. And so they had a very detailed, very clear, kind of storyboard-esque shot list of exactly what they needed to get and exactly from what angle for it to fit into their 3D environments that they created. So the planning that went in long before we even came on board. I remember when we were cast, we played a demo, and they've been working on it for ages before us. And the fact we could play a demo showed how much work had gone in. Then we came on board, and that was 4 years ago. So the time that they've taken, it just blows with. I suppose because I don't usually work in this industry, I'm like, it's so much time. Whereas theatre, you do it, you get a response immediately, straight away, having to wait for so long to see it all. And we'd do kind of little blocks. So we'd shoot for a week, 2 weeks, and then they'd work on all of that stuff. And then we'd come back, shoot for another couple of weeks, have a few months off. So after the first couple of times, we'd come in and they go, "Hey, this is what you look like," because they'd painted some of the previous stuff we'd shot. And that was so exciting to see us in that form. It was very, very exciting.
I can imagine. I mean, you look obviously like for like.
I look like me.
Unbelievable.
It's
yeah, you do.
Crazy.
There's no mistaking it.
No,
sure.
it's beyond.
My daughter, she really needs her sleep, and my dad is one hell of a snorer.
Oh, the sweetheart. If this is all just to cheat me out of a few dollars.
Hi, I'm Michelle. Thanks so much for accommodating us.
Well, we're not exactly full. Glad to help.
It was a fuse again. Problem with not having breakers is... Oh, hey. Welcome to Two Rock.
Paul, do me a favor. Go ask Norma to tow this guy's car back here to the lot.
Ah, dang. You burst a tire or something?
The elephant in the room then, I guess, would be the fact that it's your likeness, but not your voice. Do you want to explain to
Mm-mm.
everyone how that ended up coming to be? And, does it feel strange that obviously, you're being voiced, it's your likeness, but it's being voiced by somebody else?
Yeah, it was really trippy when I played it for the first time, actually. When it came out, I had to wait like everyone else. And then playing it, my partner and I were sitting there going, man, it kind of sounds like you. That's weird. And every so often there are a couple of words and a couple of emotes where she's just like, oh, or no, like very short things. And both of us would look at each other and go, oh, that's so weird.
I spent 10 years saving up for this place. Ash only just started to feel at home. How can we stay here now?
We'll give the walls a fresh coat of paint. Replace the glass, you'll see. It'll be good as new.
It's not the walls. It's what happened within them.
I think if I sounded American, I would sound very close to Joyce. But yes, Joyce is voiced by an amazing American actress, Tonantzin Carmelo. I really want to meet her one day. She seems legit. I did a little stalk online. And what I love about her voicing it and me being the physical representation for Joyce is that Joyce as a character is Indigenous to both New Zealand and America. And she's represented in the casting with me being Indigenous to New Zealand and Tonantzin being Indigenous to America. And I love that Interior Night and Microsoft Xbox, all those guys were so committed to casting respectfully and correctly. Because, especially now, like the chat about representation is so strong. And so it's really cool to be part of a character who is represented well. It's really cool. I did get a call from my sister the other day. She was like, your accent is so good. And then I followed up with, and so not me. And she was like, no, I've told everyone it's you. So there is a bit of confusion online saying that I'm the voice, but I'm definitely not. I did not voice anything at all. I don't know where that's coming from, but Tonantzin Carmelo did an incredible job, and I'm so stoked that she is Joyce's voice.
Well, no, hopefully one day you do get to meet and get to. Does she live in London at all? Like, was she recording it London?
I believe she lives in the States.
Right. Okay.
Because Side did as per the credits, the voices, and some of the actors did voice themselves. I get very confused with the characters' names and the actors' names because I only really know them by their real names. Terry, who plays the dad of Ollie, who is Vince's dad. I can't remember his name,
The
no.
granddad, but yeah.
The granddad. That's his voice. He's English, but he's doing an accent. And one of the brothers, there are a couple of people scattered throughout who do voice their characters, which is really, really cool.
Can you try and do an American accent? Can you?
I can. I actually, fun fact, I actually played the wife of one Joseph Gordon-Levitt in an Apple TV show called Mr. Corman. And I had to be American. And I somehow convinced the Americans that I was American and got cast, which was very exciting.
And then you had to speak in an American accent the entire time.
Yeah. Thankfully, it was only 3 very short scenes. So I memorized those mouth patterns so hard.
That's understandable. I guess then the next logical step for you would be to have the likeness and the voice acting on another game, and perhaps in a similar fashion as Dusk Falls. Did you like the cinematography of this game and the story and everything?
Beautiful. Like yeah, it's gorgeous. And it's definitely a game up my alley. Like I gamed a lot as a kid, and then I went to high school and I kind of stopped for a while. So it's been it's really nice to play as someone who isn't a heavy gamer now. It's really nice to play a game like this because it is relatively accessible. And I can't do those when you have to you've got one joystick that's doing your perspective and one joystick that's moving you. My character's walking in circles. Like I can't do those ones. But something like this where you just have, It's not too difficult. Controller wise is really fun to play. I would absolutely love to do another character like this for sure. It was such a fun job to do.
I can imagine. I can imagine it must be amazing to see yourself on screen in the way that you are, and the way it is. I mean, so just for anyone who's not played the game, and obviously we'll keep this very spoiler free.
Yes.
Who is Joyce then? So who is your character? Are you able to set the scene a little bit for us?
Yes. So Joyce she's a single mum. She's got a beautiful boy called Ash.
Shema, Ryan's mom said I can stay over tonight. Don't wait up.
She's got this motel, which happens to be the setting for the majority of book one. So As Dusk Falls is in 2 books. Book 1 is mainly set at her motel. And her and her mate, Paul, who works with her, find themselves in the middle of a giant hostage situation that is kind of entangling her and these brothers and this family, and they all just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
And
is that spoiler free enough?
I would say that's spoiler free enough.
It's her best shot.
I'm telling you, we gotta move.
Drop the weapon.
Easy now.
I said drop it.
Did you expect it to have such a? I mean, I know you're going to say yes, but are you happy? Are you overwhelmed by the amount of response that's been going on online at the moment by just your friends and everybody else wanting to talk to you about it? Is this is this taking you off by surprise?
I wouldn't say it's taken me by surprise because we were so lucky to play a demo. We kind of had a peek behind the curtain and we could see how enjoyable it was to play and how it really messes with your morality. It really challenges you to make some really hard decisions and at times make some really easy decisions. And then you see, half an hour down the track, oh no, this thing that I thought was not important has now screwed that situation up entirely. And so then you're second guessing yourself. And I remember being very passionate playing the demo. So we all knew it was something special. And of course, we all hoped that it would have a great reception. But to see all of these platforms and reviewers and gamers just sharing so much love for it is so wonderful. It just makes you feel warm and cozy to be part of a project that people love,
I can imagine. And it's just getting all that online love and everything else and everybody else coming to you and just telling you what a good job that you've done. And you've done a good job.
Yeah. Thank you.
it must be great to hear. In terms of the team, so Interior Night and as you mentioned before, the Xbox team as well. What was it like to work with them during this time period? Obviously, we won't say the word, but the last couple of years have been difficult in the world with everything that's been going on. Can you explain to us how the process started? So you obviously casted in London, but you don't live in London anymore. Can you explain that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so the project started, like I said, 4 years ago in London. All was great. Absolutely loved working with the team at Interior Night. My goodness, those days on set were so glorious. And all the actors as well. Just big shout out to the actors. We had the best time and just had so much fun with each other. And I really miss them. Especially because I can't visit them. Anyway, I ended up coming back to New Zealand originally for 2 months to do a theatre show called Amelia, which I saw on the West End at the Vaudeville Theatre and fell in love with. And when the director reached out to me to see if I would be interested in coming home to do this show at the Pop-Up Globe, I immediately said yes, auditioned, got it, cool, I'll come home for 2 months. And then March 2020 happened, and then I found myself still living here, and months go by, and eventually Interior Night reached out and said, hey, can you please come back? And I just felt really uncomfortable at the time. We didn't know what was happening in the world and how serious this whole thing was going to be. So I was a very difficult diva actor and said, no, I'm going to stay here. Thank you very much. And incredibly, amazingly, they were both totally fine with that decision and totally respected it, which made me feel really good. They also set up a New Zealand unit. So if you watch the credits long enough, you'll see in the credits there's a New Zealand unit in which they captured the rest of Joyce that we hadn't finished yet. It was kind of wild.
They set up an entire unit just for you.
I know, it made me feel like such a diva. Especially when I turned up and they've got all these, because the cameras that they had to use to capture the footage, I could be speaking out of turn, I'm not sure. I'm 95% sure that they were Aries and they were like the 4K, best of the best, top of the line. So they had to hire all of that equipment here. They had to hire a studio, a director, like there was a full like crew. And then I turned up. I know, and I felt so bad.
Well,
it was incredible that they could do that.
It's understandable.
Because I was so uncomfortable traveling.
But look how many jobs you created.
True.
So, no, that is really good of Interior Night, obviously, and Xbox and whoever else is involved to get that set up for you and to make sure that you're comfortable during that particular time period.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, it's such an amazing.
Oh, and that
project.
kind of links in to what I stopped myself saying before. The lovely young gentleman who played my son, we rehearsed together. So that was the other thing, like we would rehearse our scenes like you would anything. And we rehearsed our scenes together and it was great. And then we filmed them separately because we hadn't shot that by the time I came back. So I never actually got to work on set with him.
So you didn't get to react in any way, shape or form. You were just reading your lines and then just sort of waiting a moment and sort of then reacting to knowing what the line's going to be. Wow. Yeah.
So we did have someone amazingly and hilariously, my now fiance, which is very exciting. He ended up getting the job as the props person in the New Zealand unit. And then we used him to stand in for my son.
Oh, okay.
So there are some scenes, no spoilers, there are some emotional scenes with my son. And I got to do that looking at him, which was great. Because he's an actor as well, so we made it work.
Definitely, it's good to be able to bounce off someone. I can imagine when you're doing acting and stuff like that. And I can imagine there's a few people watching this video right now that are aspiring to get into either acting or the video game industry. I mean, what would you recommend? Let's say someone's first step. Let's say they're an avid gamer. They would love to do a game like this. They've got a bit of acting skills amongst them and everything like that. What would you recommend that they do to sort of get into doing what you're doing right now?
Yeah, that's a really good question and one that I don't think I'm fully skilled to answer, but I'll give my advice nonetheless and then take what you want, leave what you want. I would say look at the games that you love, the games that you really love to play. Look at who created them. Go through that. The credits are an invaluable piece of information. Go through the credits, see who made it, who did the voice casting, who was the voice studio. Get in touch with those people. There are for all actors, depending on what medium you work in, but for game actors, especially people who want to do voices, you really should have a voice reel. And there are people who specifically do that for you. So there's an amazing woman. She is a New Zealander, so I am biased, but I truly believe she's amazing. Kirsty Gilmore. She puts together people's voice reels for game auditions. So when an audition comes up, you can send that away and they can hear what you can do before offering you an audition. So I would say just get to know the names of the people behind the games that you love and try and get in touch with them, try and connect with them, and have stuff to back you up, like your voice reel, before you get in touch with them.
Yeah. I mean, are there any sort of places they should upload those kind of things to? Should they create their own little sort of demo website, for example, or portfolio?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say if you can once you've got that all together, reach out to agents. So there are agencies that only represent voice actors, but there are other agencies that represent actors who do everything. I wasn't represented specifically by an agent who was super into gaming or who represented a lot of voice actors. They kind of represented actors doing all sorts. And I somehow found my way in. Agencies are, I would highly recommend trying to find an agent. If you don't have an agent though, there's no harm in having your own website. I have my own website because I can curate that myself. I have an agent here and an agent in the UK. Their websites look the way that they want them to look. And I love that. And yeah, it works for them. If there's something that I'm super passionate about and I really, really want to get the job, I will try and get people to find their way to my website because I can make it look the way that I want it to look. I can include the jobs that I want to include. On my website, I have my show reel as an actor that's like scenes of you in other projects. I've got my voice reel. I've got photos from other jobs I've done. I've got a full CV, etc., etc. So if you don't have representation, you can still try and get work. Get a website. Most of them you can get for free. Like, it doesn't need to be fancy. It just has to have the information there, you know?
Yeah,
Hustle.
that makes sense. And then finally, techniques and stuff like that. You know, how do you practice accents? You yourself, like, how do you just watch a bunch of, like, say, American programming and then just sort of try and copy and mimic that, or is there another way that you would try and do that?
I'm going to preface this with I'm really rubbish at learning accents. I can't even do an Australian accent. It's terrible. It's very bad. I don't know how I learnt. I've got a very generic British accent that I can do.
Oh.
And I think that was just from watching. I'm not going to do it.
Oh, God, you can't say it. Introduce yourself pretending that you're British. Just make up a name. I don't know.
Okay. Hello, my name is Acushla-Tara. I live in Bow in London and I am an actor.
Wow.
It's my generic British accent, which I think I learnt from watching Harry Potter. It wasn't a concerted effort, but I'm pretty sure just mimicking Hermione over time, I found that voice. And I do play an English woman in a great podcast called The Offensive. And no one's noticed thus far that I'm not actually English. So I feel like that's good. With my American accent. They're gonna know. They're gonna know.
And they're gonna know.
But with my American accent, I got an accent coach. I needed an expert to help me figure that out. I had an okay general American, but it did tend towards the sort of New York East Coast because I'd done that accent for a theatre show. Amazing show called A View from the Bridge. But this new character was supposed to be in LA, and so having to like move that accent to the other coast, I just got an expert and she helped me find the sounds in my mouth. My fiance just can hear something and he can do so many accents. It's ridiculous. Like, I can do one British accent. He can do like 3 different Irish accents. Wow. And it just happens. And I think, well, he's also English and part Irish. But he's got a really good ear for it. So in terms of learning an accent, I would say I don't have any tips and tricks except for get someone who knows what they're doing to help you.
When I used to live in New Zealand, and you know, really funny, we're not going to say where, but we used to live very close to each other. But obviously, I wasn't living there when you're living there, and it's unbelievable that small world. But
yeah.
I was working in Auckland, and I think a lot of my coworkers hated me because anytime they said something like egg, but they would say egg, and I would just say it out loud, so I couldn't do their accent. I was just kind of just copying what they were saying, but
mimicking certain words.
Yeah, mimicking certain words.
I had that in London. I worked at a coffee shop for a while, and when I was giving change, or I'd always get stuck with 10, like 10. I'd say 10, and everyone's like, "Huh?" I'm like 10, and eventually I'd be like, "This many," and it was like, to co-workers and customers alike, there was just this confusion around just very specific words. 10, bin, pen. But we got there in the end, you know?
Yeah.
You make it happen.
I lived with a guy called Ben, when I
Mhm.
was in New Zealand, which I thought was really funny because one of my housemates was calling him Bean, Bean.
Bean. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. That was a good time, but you know we're sort of running out of time now. And what I will say is, you know, it's been great and fantastic talking to you. And for anyone who's not played the game, they should go out and play it. It's on Xbox Game
Yes.
Pass for those who've got Game Pass Ultimate subscriptions and stuff like that. But where can people find you? And you know, any shout outs that you want to do and any thank yous and stuff like that, please go ahead.
Yeah, As Dusk Falls, obviously. Destruction All Stars as Hannah. I have a TV show coming out very specific to New Zealand as this one called Te Pāmu Kumara, which means the Kumara farm. Kumara being a sweet potato in Te Reo Māori, which is our native language. And it is one of the first ever fully Te Reo Māori kids shows to be released ever. So that's coming out if you're watching from New Zealand on Māori TV Plus. And I also have a couple of TV shows coming out both this year and next year, which are very exciting. And I very much want to talk about them, but I really can't. But if you keep an eye on, I've got Instagram at Acushla-Tara, Twitter at Acushla-Tara. It's just my first name. Just Google my first name, it all comes up.
I'll
I
put
think
them
I'm
in
the
the
only
link. I'll put them in the
Acushla-Tara.
description. Don't worry.
Okay, great. Keep an eye on that. I shout and scream about my work all the time.
Fantastic. Well, no, honestly, it's been amazing talking to you and getting to learn a little bit about you and As Dusk Falls. Anyone who's interested, I will put the links down below of all the projects that Acushla just mentioned there in the socials as well as links to the game if you're not even sure about the game just yet and you haven't heard anything about it. But no,
It's
honestly,
a good one.
It's a really good one. I
It's
am
a very
playing
good one.
But no, honestly, it's been fantastic getting to talk to you, and hopefully, you know, we'll see you in a video game again very soon. And you know, we'll keep our fingers crossed, and you know, hope to see another performance. And if you do, obviously, we'd love to get you back on the channel. And
Absolutely,
I would love to get you back on the channel, and get to talk to you about it. But no, thank you very much.
Thank you.
For watching,
This has
everyone,
been
as well.
fun.
Thank you for taking part. No, thank you.
As we say here in New Zealand, ka kite.
Ka kite.
Perfect.